Welcome everyone to our EmpowerMe Hub um, conversation with Sasha. Sasha today is going to be talking about the Career Confidence Code with you, and I am so excited to listen to this conversation. Sasha Elezovski is I think I got that right. Did I
Yes,
get that right?
you got it
Okay,
perfectly
cool.
right, Sharon.
Is a transformational career coach and former corporate HR leader, helping ambitious women break through self doubt, negotiate their worth, and take bold, unapologetic action in their careers. With 13 plus years in HR and recruiting, a master's in HR development, and certification as an intuitive life coach, she fuses corporate strategy with intuitive guidance to help women align their ambition with their values and get paid accordingly without working a minute past 5 p.m. Sasha has helped countless women land $15,000 to $50,000 salary jumps and high value career moves. She's also the creator of the Corporate Glow Up, a newsletter and community dedicated to helping career driven women elevate with confidence, strategy, and a little bit of magic, which I always love. So I'm really excited to hear what you have to share with us today. And I'm going to pass the stage over to you, and I will rejoin you at the end when you're done. So
Oh,
take it away.
thanks, Sharon. Thank you so much for that beautiful introduction. And thank you so much for everyone that is joining us live or watching the replay. This subject, this topic is very near and dear to my heart. After all of the years that I have worked in corporate, I have met many wonderful women that were brilliant, but we're missing a few pieces, right? Like, and confidence was one of them. So this is why I'm very passionate about this topic. So let's get started. Okay, so you're not here to play small, and neither am I, right? So what I want you to do is, let's set an intention together for this chat, right? If you want, you can flip open your workbooks that are would be available to you with this conversation, and open up to page 1 and write your intentions and your goal, right? Take a moment to jot it down for this session. I like to always open up with an intention for the chat. What do you want to walk away with today? What do you want to feel? What do you want to achieve after this call, after this conversation? My intention for this workshop, I'm going to set it for us today, but I want you to set up your own, is to help you give yourself permission to take up space. Okay. Meaning, own your presence unapologetically in conversations and decisions and rooms you've earned the right to be in, even when imposter syndrome, tries to get at you, right? And our goal for this chat is to have you shift, from hesitation to heck yes, okay, in your career. All right. That is my goal for this session for you today. All right. So what to expect today, right? We're going to talk about getting practical tools to boost your confidence, simple frameworks to speak up, negotiate, and take bold action, a whole vibe shift, right? So you can stop second guessing and start owning your worth. So definitely be sure to grab your workbook and pen for this, because, it isn't a passive workshop. There will be times throughout the workshop that I will be mentioning activities in the workbook that I think would benefit you and some of these things. So definitely look at your workbook, refer to your workbook as you're watching this topic, this conversation. Okay. So the career confidence code, we're going to talk about the confidence gap in corporate, mindset shifts, and why confidence equals practice, not personality. 3, we're going to go over the speak up, the code framework, and how you can speak up with that framework in mind. We're going to talk about positioning yourself for raises and promotions. We're going to talk about overthinking, going from overthinking to going into bold action. And then we're going to talk about, some fun things, some final takeaways. Okay. Okay. So why confidence? Why now? Well, let's go over some statistics here, right? So 60% of women say they avoid negotiating for fear of being seen as difficult. I can tell you in my years of corporate corporate experience that one of the things that I worked with women a lot, right? I would take my recruiter hat off and I would put my coach hat on, is the negotiation, right? Most women were very, very uncomfortable with that topic. And this is one of the reasons, right? They didn't want to seem like they were taking the process too long, or they were being too greedy, or they were just very uncomfortable with it, right? They were afraid of taking up space. 1 in 3 women say they hold back ideas in meetings. So they're afraid to speak out. I can tell you I'm guilty of this. And only 38% of women feel confident asking for a raise, even when they're high performers. Okay. So I want you to think to yourself for a moment here, which of these are you guilty of? Are you guilty of 1, 2, 3, or all? Right. I can tell you that I myself have struggled with all 3 of these. Okay. Okay. So, do any of these sound familiar? Right. I don't want to come off as too much. What if I ask and they say no? Maybe if I just work harder, they'll notice. We've been conditioned to believe that ambition needs to be quiet, right? Society often teaches women, especially in corporate spaces, that being ambitious is only acceptable if it's subtle or palatable. Excuse me. They tell us, don't brag. They tell us, don't ask for too much. Don't make others uncomfortable. Be a team player, even if it costs you your voice. So in short, be successful, but not too loud about it. And confidence needs to be earned, which to me is like, I don't agree with this. Confidence is something that you have, not something that you earn, right? Many of us were taught that we have to prove ourselves before we are allowed to be confident. And then once you have the title, then you can speak up, right? After you've done enough, then you can ask for a raise. Get the credentials, the validation, the praise. Then you're worthy of owning your power. But here's the truth. Confidence isn't something that you earn. Like I said, it's something that you decide to claim. And when you do, that's when everything changes, right? So you're not the problem here, or I will say there's, we have to take accountability. There are times when we have to take ownership of ourselves and of our confidence, but you certainly are the solution. The great news is that you can change this, right? So we'll go over to the next slide. So, if nothing changes, right? If everything stays as status quo, like as it is now, you may miss opportunities and promotions. When women hold back from speaking up or self-advocating, they're passed over for leadership roles because the assumption is that they're not ready, right? Their names are left out of rooms that they should be in, right? 2, they burn out from overperformance. So instead of asking for what they want, women often try to earn recognition by working longer hours, which is insane, taking on more responsibility without more pay, saying yes to everything to avoid being difficult. And this leads to resentment, exhaustion, disconnection from their purpose, from our purpose, right? They also struggle with if nothing changes, they struggle with internalized self-doubt and playing small. So when you're constantly second guessing yourself, second guessing your worth, or feel like your voice is too much, it chips away at your self-trust. So you say things to yourself like, maybe I'm not ready. They probably already know this. I don't want to sound like I'm bragging, right? Number 4, you lose income over time. Women who don't negotiate their salaries can lose hundreds or thousands of dollars over the course of their careers. Okay. So, even a $5,000 difference early on can snowball to over $300,000 in lost earnings, or $500,000 in lost earnings, right? So not speaking up doesn't just affect your current role. It limits your future, your finances, your fulfillment, right? This is a snowball effect that goes into the rest of your life. The good news is that all of that changes when you decide to show up differently. Okay. And we're going to talk about this now. So you build confidence by doing the scary thing before you're ready and realizing you didn't die, right? Because confidence isn't who you are. It's not personality. It's what you build. This is something that, works over, like you build over time. Okay. So confidence equals self-trust and repetition. It's, you don't have to feel 100% ready to take action. The more you speak up, the easier it gets. And waiting until you're perfect equals staying stuck. Okay. So how many of us have gone bungee jumping, right? Like think about would you consider bungee jumping? I mean, if you're like me, you are not a thrill seeker by any means. I like to be on the ground, nice and steady, where nothing happens to me. And, I don't like to do anything that's thrill seeking at all. But I saw a video the other day of a woman that was getting ready to bungee jump, and she's sitting there praying. And the guy is like, it's not going to get easier just because you're sitting here waiting for time. It's not going to get easier. You just have to do it. Right. So the point is, confidence doesn't mean that you're not scared. Right. Confidence means that you know that you don't want your fear to overcome your performance or overcome that thing that you really want to do. Right. I've never bungee jumped. I will probably never bungee jump. But anyway, so confidence is not a personality trait. It's a muscle. You don't have to wait for it to show up. You strengthen it by using it over and over and over again. Okay. So in your workbooks, if you turn to page 3, you'll see the confidence check-in. Okay. When you have a moment today or whenever you review, whenever you have some time, I like for people to take action within 24 hours of a workshop, because that's how you build momentum. But when you have a moment, take inventory, right? I need you to rate yourself honestly on those confidence habits so you can start shifting today. Okay. Okay. So setting boundaries equals self-respect, not selfishness. Okay. Saying no doesn't make you mean. You're not responsible for others people's reactions. Boundaries protect your energy, your priorities, and leadership, right? So instead of saying something like, I'm so sorry, I just don't think that I can right now, you can say something like, that doesn't work for me, but here's what does. Or you can say something like, I'm at capacity right now, but I'd be happy to revisit this later. Okay. A lack of boundaries can be a sign of poor leadership skills, right? Because how will you lead a team if you can't say no? So if you're someone that wants to be promoted in the next year or so, right? Think about this, right? You need to be able to have healthy boundaries, because if you're going to sit there and people please on your way up, leadership is going to be very difficult for you. Okay. You can't make everyone happy. You have to make sure that the job is done, right? So that means that you have to have healthy boundary for yourself and for others. Okay. No is a completely false. It's a complete and full sentence, right? And sentences end with a period, not a semicolon, not a colon, a period, which means a full stop. No, right? You don't need a reason to protect your peace, So on page 4 of your workbook, I do have a boundary reframing activity. You can use a script, this script right here, as there's also a script in the workbook that you can refer to it. Use it as an example, as inspiration, but definitely write your own. Where do you need to say, ask yourself this question as you're writing this. Where do you need to say, that doesn't work for me in your life right now? That's what I want you to think of. And as you're writing and as you're thinking about and completing this activity. Okay. Okay. So now my favorite subject, right? So the code framework for confidence and communication. So C, clarity. Know what you want to say and why it matters. Okay. So here is you're thinking about what's the goal of the communication or the conversation. Oh, own it. Speak from your wins, not your worries, right? So here's the impact that I've made, right? Speak from facts, right? Stick to the facts. If you stick to the facts, you don't have to worry about the I thinks and the, you don't have to worry about that. D, decide to be heard. Make that decision. Okay. Silence isn't humility. It's self-silencing. Sorry, I can't see too much, but it's self-silencing. Okay. So, this is where you say, I choose to take up space. All right. E, elevate your energy. Confidence isn't just what you say, it's how you say it. So your tone, your pace, your body language matters. Okay. This is where that matters. On page 5 in the workbook, I have outlined the code framework in a concise fashion. So you'll be able to, view it in the same orderly fashion that I have it here. But then on page 6, you can complete a practice prompt to help you rewrite the narrative for yourself. Okay. So when you get some time today or this week, think of the one thing that you've been hesitating to say and rework it using clarity, ownership, the decision to be heard. Okay. And elevated energy. Okay. We're going to go on to the next slide. So if you want the raise or promotions, let's start here. Okay. So you want to track your impact, achievements, and receipts regularly. So receipts meaning like proof of concept, right? Like what you've been able to deliver. So the 3 P's of the 3 P's framework for this is prep, know your numbers, impact, metrics, and wins. So this is where you want to review your performance data. You want to look up testimonials. So this is probably one good tip that I have for you. So whenever you complete a project in your company, or whenever you complete either projects, or let's say you work closely with someone in the company, ask them for a LinkedIn recommendation, right? Start building up your testimonials, start working as a business, start thinking you're less of an employee, more as a CEO of your own career, right? What do CEOs do? They want to collect testimonials. They want to collect proof of, build proof of concept so that they can become promotable, right? They can grow in their careers, right? They can build their personal brand, their professional brand. Okay. So review performance data, testimonials, and project success. Okay. Position. So the second P is position. Tie your value to your business goals, right? So how does your work support your team, your leader, your company vision, right? And then 3, pitch, P for pitch. So ask with confidence, not apology, right? So you want to, definitely use practice scripts and deliver with certainty, right? If you're someone that struggles with, like myself, like I tend to go a few rabbit holes by the time the conversation is over. So in order for you to stay on track, stay on topic, okay, you want to make sure that, you work from scripts but also be flexible, right? You don't want to sound like a robot. But ultimately, if you don't talk about your value, don't assume that others will. Okay, because your boss is not they're not waking up in the morning every day saying, gee, Sasha worked very hard today. Let me give her a promotion. No, as managers, they have, 20 other things that they're thinking about, right? And, your promotion is not a priority, or your raise is not a priority. I'm sorry to say. So you do have to make it your own, and you have to do it in a way where you want people to give you that, right? By voicing yourself, not by staying quiet, not by overworking, by voicing yourself, giving yourself permission to take up space, right? So we're going to go on to the next slide. Okay, so this is an example script that you can use to request a raise, right? So over the last 12 months, I've led initiatives that saved our team over 100 hours and contributed to whatever specific result. I don't know, like whatever you can think of, whatever your role, your project would do, right? Based on this impact and, market research, I'd like to have a conversation about adjusting my compensation to reflect contributions and industry standards. Excuse me. I'm very excited about continuing to grow with the company, and I want to make sure my compensation aligns with the value that I'm bringing. Okay. I think 12 months is a perfect time frame to think about that, right? That's where performance raises come in. Here in the US, we have something like called COLA, so the cost of living assessment or adjustment. And, you know, there's usually a percentage and based on the team. So usually the highest performance get the biggest cut of, you know, that raise percentage. And, you know, there's usually one or two people in a team, depending on how big the team is, right? And then you have like the other people in the group. So it really depends on the size of the team and how big your group is. But ultimately, you know, I don't know how it works in other parts of the world, but there's a good chance that if you have a conversation with your manager and you're always telling them and you're always making sure that they understand and know the worth, the value that you bring, not just showing them, but also making sure that they understand that you know, you'll be able to get the raise that you're looking for, right? Not guaranteeing it, obviously, but anyway. So on page 4, you're going to start creating your value vault, okay? The way you do this is by listing 3 career wins, big or small, and quantifying them. And then what you want to do is create a value statement. The value, you'll be able to see it. There's like a template there that you can create your value statement. You'll see it when you'll see what I'm talking about when you see it. You can actually say that out loud in your next conversation and see how that goes. Okay. Let me go to the next slide. Okay. So let's call out what's really actually holding you back here, right? Because the only person that's holding you back is yourself. If you have asked for a raise and promotion and it's still not happening time and time again, then obviously it's time for you to move on, right? To bigger and better pastures. But ultimately the thing that's keeping you from moving on to bigger and better pastures is, you know, some of these things as well. So let's go over them, right? So fear-based habits that keep you playing small, perfectionism, guilty. Waiting until it's perfect and never really starting, right? You always want the pieces to be in place before you can actually start. That is holding you back. Silence, believing that staying quiet makes you humble or safe. No. Over apologizing, dimming your voice to seem likable. Okay. Again, that goes hand in hand with people pleasing, right? So things that you may say to yourself are, I'll wait until I feel more ready. I don't want to make waves. Maybe if I work harder, they'll notice me. And the fourth one that I didn't put on here, but it's just as crazy, is, you know, maybe if I get that degree or maybe if I get another certification. I have met women that are very high overachieving, right? That have degrees on degrees on degrees and so many certifications. I had this one woman, she had like 25 certifications on her resume, but she had maybe at most 5 years of experience on her, in her background, on her resume. So I asked her, I was like, you know, why do you need all these certifications? She's like, well, I just want to make sure that I am, that I position myself as someone that they want, right? Like, I just feel like I need to be a little bit more qualified. And so to that, I say, don't overspend money. Education is very important. I myself have a master's degree, so I'm not saying that you shouldn't go out there and get an education or get certificates to make sure you're qualified. But if you are constantly looking for the next thing to achieve, you want to check your imposter syndrome at that point, right? Because imposter syndrome could be driving you to think that you are not qualified enough when you really already are. Okay, so don't put yourself into debt thinking that you are not qualified enough by getting all these certificates and all these accolades, right? You are enough. All right, you are enough. So I do want to tell you a story. I had a wonderful candidate once. Her name was, actually, I probably shouldn't say her name, but she was already doing incredible work in clinical research, but she hadn't asked for the money that she deserved. With just one conversation and, you know, some reworking and shifting of beliefs, she went from hesitating to negotiating, and she walked away with a $45,000 increase, hitting 6 figures for the first time. So I remember when she first came to me, she was like, I don't know what to, she was making maybe like 50 to 60K, and the role that she was interviewing for was the minimum that they started at was 100K. She was working for, you know, a different type of, a different industry, like a different level of industry. And so she was like, well, I'm okay with, she told me like something like 10K more than what she's asking. And I said, no, um, this role starts at minimum 100K. Like, have you done some research? And she's like, I have, but like, I feel like I feel like they won't give it to me. I took my recruiter hat off, I put my coaching hat on, and I definitely had a conversation with her about, her confidence and about taking space and about like, hey, you deserve this money. Just because you aren't currently making that kind of money doesn't mean that you can't. So we were able to get her, and I forgot the numbers really, but I remember it was like a 45K increase from what she was making till the job offer. So I'm very proud of that. And she's actually growing very nicely. I still keep in contact with her, but anyway, I almost said her name, but I probably shouldn't. Okay, so we'll go over to the next slide. Okay, so here's ultimately what I want you to remember. You don't need to be more to get what you deserve, right? Remember I just told you about the accolades and the 20 different. You don't need all that. You just need to remember that who the heck, I don't want to say the whole word, but I just need you to remember who the heck you are and show up like it. Okay. Right before this conversation, I was very nervous to get on the call, right? I was very nervous to have these. I always get nervous in public speaking and all that good stuff. And, but I know that my fear is not bigger than me. Okay. So what I did was I put some affirmation songs. I put Unstoppable by Sia. I turned on my sacral chakra candle. And I went for it. Right. So I just need you guys to remember that you don't need to do more or be more to get what you deserve, right? You just have to believe it and remember who you are as a person. Definitely make sure you have the right experiences and things like that, but don't go overboard. There's reasonable and not reasonable. And sometimes our imposter syndrome can get us, right? Okay. So what would the unapologetic version of you do next, right? Send that email. Ask that question in the meeting. Speak your idea out loud. Write your impact statement. Set the boundary, not just for others, but for yourself, right? I am no longer going to accept, or here's a boundary that I like for myself. I am no longer going to say yes to something unless I can ask myself very valid questions. Like, is this going to move the needle for me? Is this going to bankrupt me in my time? Is this worth the results worth, the input, right? What I'm putting into it, right? And can I say yes without resentment? Those are the things I ask myself. So before I say yes to something, right? Prepare for that raise, request an introduction, reach out to someone and say, hey, I see that you know so-and-so, and I would really like to get to know that. I really would like to ask them questions. Can you make that introduction for us, right? So let's anchor things in, right? So pages 8 through 10 of the workbook has space in it to plan out your next bold moves. But before you leave me here today, I want you to choose one bold thing you're going to do. So make sure you choose one of these things, right? This concludes the workshop. So Sharon, back to you.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Sasha. That was empowering and delightful.
So.
It's intriguing. I know that in my career, I've done all of these, and I've been in the same places and spaces as everybody else. And the one thing that I heard once is a statement: water is wet,
Mm-hmm.
right? So water is wet. How do you explain that? How do you describe that? How do you describe the value that you bring from being the brilliance that you are? Because as we build our brilliance, we don't see it. We don't actually see that magical moment or those magical moments to be able to document them and write them down as metrics along the way for accomplishment goal points, right?
Yeah.
And yet, when others hear about what we do and we talk to them, suddenly we get Oh my goodness, is that, do you know what you just did?
Yeah.
Do you know what you just, and most of us don't know. So how do you help people get to that point of knowing and trusting them that they know themselves, like water is wet,
Yeah.
you
I
know,
Yep. So
and then they can explain it. Then they can build on that and show up as that.
yes. So two things. So part of the coaching process that I do with my women is I have them build a brag list. So I call it the brag list because I like to, what I want to do is take the shame away from bragging, right? Um, and typically there's like, there's selling yourself and then there's bragging. But anyway, so I have them build something like that where every time that they finish a project or they're finishing a task, that they write down all their achievements. Like, and whenever, like I said, whenever you are doing projects with others, like when I was a project manager, for example, in HR, like, and I worked with all these different groups and teams. I would ask myself, like, and this is where you have to differentiate yourself and treat yourself like a business. I always ask them, like, how was our collaboration, right? Like, how was our partnership in this project together? Do you feel that we could have, where are some things that we could have done better? So it's almost like you're setting up performance reviews, for yourself with others that you've worked with. And I always make sure that I write down on this brag list, okay, like, I was able to complete this project within, I don't know, like I said, it was going to be 90 days and it was more like, 67 days or something like that because of these things that I did. Okay. So always make sure you're writing that down. But also, Sharon, imposter syndrome works in isolation. So, like I said, as you're talking to these people, kind of asking them, how was your collaboration or partnership with them? Also, ask them some feedback. Hey, can I ask you some feedback? How do you feel that I did? Right. And you have to be ready to listen to good and bad, right? And not just people at work. You want to ask people, like your friends, your former colleagues, there was one time I did that. I sent a text message to 10 of my friends. And I said, what would you say are the three most important of the best traits that you know about me? I mean, I was tearing up. I was crying when they sent back the responses. There were things that I didn't even see in myself, like you were saying, Sharon. I saw things. I didn't see those things that they were, and I didn't even realize that they were so important. I didn't even realize that they were so like, oh my gosh, that is actually a wonderful skill. I just thought that this was like so definitely, don't be afraid to ask for feedback. Don't be afraid to ask those questions. And it's a way that you can help. And I also did ask, like, what are some things that you feel I can work on? So, it wasn't the best answers for me to hear, but nonetheless, like, it was things that I decided I wanted to work on. So you have to be ready for the good and bad answers. But yeah, that's what I long story short.
That's absolutely perfect, and that is the way to uncover the water is wet in terms of your self view of yourself, which, by the way, for most of us is 10 years past. Our
Yeah.
self view is 10 years ago, not today.
Yes.
So making it current and discovering what the new stuff is really critical along the way.
Yeah.
So thank you very much. That's awesome. I have put in the chat the link for people to get all of the assets, the workbook, and the recordings and so on. So make sure that you do register to get all of that. And I am going to talk to you now about the EmpowerMe Hub and why we created this. Because we've learned through the years, my business partner and myself, how to master life's lessons and learning is through holistic support. This is where you ask people, what do you know about me? How do you take that in? And where you can have conversations in the hub, and people's responses can tell you how brilliant that is without you even knowing that it was brilliant. It's a whole human as well, where you discuss have conversations around every aspect of your life. Nothing is off the table, and it's the going into that. I'm a whole human. I need holistic support. Burnout is making me angry here, anxious there, frustrated there, and how do I deal with all of that? Having that support is really critical to master life's lessons and learning. Making it interactive and fun, engaging, inspires people to come in, invites them in to the learning, so that you actually do achieve stronger water is wet skills and mastery along the way. Having a clear pathway and goals. So there's some um, intellect that we have in the hub that helps you define your clear pathway, your goals, similar to the workbook that Sasha has for you, is a way to actually make it clear, map it out, and actually notice and recognize that achievement along the way. Um, Recognizing that you're in control. You actually can take the driver's seat and be in control. It's all about learning along the way, sharing experiences, and then having some accountability. So we created the hub to help ensure that all of those elements are included. And the missing pieces are how to make it last. Because, you could do it once and done, but I don't know if you're the same, but I've attended many different workshops and gone back to the office and forgotten everything or most of the things that I've just learned. So, how do you consistently apply those learnings day after day? How do you have the support to not do it alone, to have a community to help guide you along the way? And then there's integrated tools and the approach. So we have resources, copious resources available for anyone to tackle any challenge. We also have step-by-step roadmap. So, of course, our supportive community, which is absolutely fabulous, global insights. Sometimes you need to go out of your geographic area to find a new insight that you would never have captured unless you realized, oh, that's actually a value in this part of the world. And I never saw it that way. So it's really important to have that. What's also key in the EmpowerMe Hub is that we have an integrated expert coaching and resources. So it's integrated in every aspect of your life. So parenting, going through illnesses, you know, all of those different aspects and elements are integrated into your pathway to success. And whatever pathway to success that you define, it's not a universal one, it's not a blueprint. It's not if you do A, B, and C, you will be successful. It's we help you empower yourself and define your pathway to success that's unique to you. This is what our community looks like. It's in a platform that is really phenomenal, actually. And it enables all kinds of different conversations and connections to occur, uh, where you can network, get Q&A, have peer support, and this accountability that I talked about. So you can hold each other to account for what you've promised to do as well. We've got a calendar of events. Every month it's filling up more and more. So you can go and listen to our guest speakers. We have roundtables, Q&A sessions, Empower Me hours, and the Get Started sessions that help you get started along the way. These are some of the containments that we have created for all of the different brilliant categories and brilliant speakers that we have. A lot on the list that is just um, smashing the confidence of our guests, our participants who are in the hub with us, and the conversations as well. So join our free day trial. We have a free day trial on right now. Join the EmpowerMe Quest. The first 7 days for your 7-day free trial are empowered by going through this quest. It will set you up for success. It also will guide you along the way to make sure that you can actually listen to yourself and set your own pathway to success your own way. So, this is what you will see when you click on that link. Start your free trial and sign up. And we look forward to seeing you in the hub as a member. So, thank you very much. And I hope you enjoyed this session. I sure did. And looking forward to more of Sasha. She will be in the hub if anybody wants to get more information from her. So take care and see you all on the other side.